Hey, Rosina, I'm super excited to have you join me today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's always excited to talk to other marketers and to hear what they're up to and how they're solving the biggest challenge we all have, right? How to drive revenue.
Exactly.
And you've certainly been in the marketing space for quite some time. You're at this new company in Orbit. But if you can just share with our audience a little bit about how you got to where you are, what's that career path been like for you as a marketer?
Yeah, sure. My career path has been long and varied, I have to say. I've had experiences with everywhere from global companies to startups, and always within there, I have focused on really the exciting things. So even with global companies, it's been, we're not doing this yet. We haven't done this in marketing. We haven't
Mm-hmm.
done this type of thing. And that's what attracts me to those places. So again, in that long and varied path between retail, e-commerce, manufacturing, all sorts of different industries. In my last role, found myself in a category creating software company and a startup, that very traditional technology startup. I loved the energy, what we were doing. And when I unfortunately was laid off from there, I found an orbit that has that same energy, that same category creation, that same level of excitement and startup. And here I am. So yeah, very innovative types of companies, no matter what I'm doing. And this is actually, not something that I have to take a lot of time to explain to people what I'm doing as
I,
opposed to past roles. So
Yeah, I certainly want to talk about that because I think that's most people are attracted to it, the most innovative companies that are doing something new and better. Because that's just like, hey, I want to stand behind something that I know I can be proud of. But it comes with a lot of challenges. But I do want to get to that in a second. But my question to you is, you mentioned you're in retail, manufacturing, software, and all these different type of industries. What are some universally true things that you've saw about marketing? Because I know sometimes people say, oh, you don't know anything about marketing because you only worked on retail side or you only sold to business to consumers. We're a manufacturing company. We don't think like that. We sell completely
yes,
different. So what are
for
some
sure.
universally true principles that you saw is applicable to any business, regardless of what they're trying to sell or who they're selling to?
So number one, communication. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing how many companies I've entered where they're just not communicating regularly with their current customers, never mind whomever they're trying to pull in for
Mm-hmm.
leads. So that nurturing, that communication, the meaningful communication, however that may be. So different audiences require different things. I've had engineering audiences rather. I've had, now we have end user enterprise. I've had in my past couple of lives, and different people are looking for different media and different content to relate to, but
Mm-hmm.
they still need it. So
Yeah.
it's communication for sure is an interesting thing that, you come in and find out, like, we haven't even done a newsletter in
Mm-hmm.
in a year, or that's not something we continually do, and how are we not doing that and starting that process up? That's the number one thing. I think that, how do they know about you if you're not communicating? How do they realize the value if you're not communicating it? So toot your own horn and
Yeah.
educate people on what it is that you're doing, whether they're current customers that you're nurturing or trying to upsell, or new people that you're trying to have become customers.
Yeah, I mean, I also look at it just at the same time, they're all people, right? Regardless if you're selling as a
Exactly.
retail industry trying to sell to another consumer, which might be more of like a impulsive purchase versus it's an
Yes.
actual B2B, which is a considered purchase, a couple of team members involved. But regardless,
Longer
there's human
cycles.
beings. Human
Right.
beings are still on both ends of the buying side, right? Like you're just trying to sell to the people, understanding their pain, understanding their need, and really trying to solve for that, and then being helpful as a marketer, right? Providing the value and
Absolutely.
resource.
Yeah, I
Um,
have always said, at the heart of it, people are people. You're just trying to understand what they need and make sure that what you're providing is what they need. So yeah, that's absolutely a universal truth.
Yeah. And communication, like you said, right? At the end of the day, you got to figure out how to get that message out and
Yes.
knowing what the message is and making sure that you can get it across the audience. So we touched on the whole concept of how interesting and exciting it is to work at an innovative company, especially one that's creating a category, because everybody wants to be a category creator these days. But that comes with a lot of challenge, right? Because the biggest challenge most businesses have, especially in the early days, is, well, how do we pay the bills? Which all comes down to driving revenue. Revenue is attributed to both, is marketing and sales is kind of the one that drives that core function. But marketing has a lot of responsibility in the early days as you're trying to build momentum for the brand, build trust and credibility in the marketplace. You show thought leadership. All of those things are very important, especially if you're a category creator, because you can't just be completely a sales driven organization anymore. So
Correct.
what are some of the things? I mean, obviously you had some success in a previous company that
Yeah.
you left and now you're here as another category creating company. what are some of the things that you look at as part of that initial early days of building a very strong brand that can sustain and grow and become that category leader in the future?
So it is absolutely, the thought leadership part is a huge part of it. But the first step to me is meeting people where they are. So we need to know inside and out what people's pains are and how we can address those pains so that we can talk to them at that level. We may be like, currently even and in my past life, we are further along in what our product and services can do than where the industry may be. So for right now, robotics is not hugely adopted. So not a lot of people are feeling the pain of scaling their robotics programs rather. Scaling their robotics programs because they aren't there yet. They might be in POC. There's, relatively few companies that are actually implementing and scaling. And so if our differentiation is at a point of, well, when you're at your full-blown robotic scale, we are the best solution for you. That's great. They're not there yet. So we need to meet people where they are. So understanding their pains, anticipating what their next pain is going to be, and communicating that and becoming known as the experts in what you're experiencing, what you're doing, and having that forethought of you're doing this now, and in future you will find that when you add another robot from another vendor, you're going to have this issue. You won't be able to orchestrate everybody. If you want to be able to use it with your IoT and infrastructure, you won't be able to if you're doing it the way you're doing it now. And being that thought leader. I think that's the thing that you have to find the people that are experiencing some small form of the pain and communicate that you are a thought leader and know what they're going through now and can anticipate what they will be going through in the future, and then be the people that are there carrying through that journey. So that way, you're the trusted advisor and have the great solution for it.
Yeah. I mean, what you're describing is that customer journey, right? You have the completely unaware folks that don't even know that this problem is about to happen or they're actually facing the problem. And then you have a problem aware. They're starting to be able to articulate the problem. They can kind of tell what's going on in their world that are not working, and then solution aware, and then consideration and decision, right? So especially if you're creating a solution for a problem that the customer doesn't even know that they have, that's where the challenge is. So how are you thinking about thought leadership and subject matter expertise, and how do you educate the market? How are you being very smart about the type of content and the questions that you're answering with your content? So
what we're doing is simplifying. We're making it so that our message is as easy and clear to understand. I came up with the tagline for us now: we make robots work. Well, what does that mean? We make robots work. That's a powerful message. That alone can send a signal of, well, I'm going through something now. That can elicit that question and conversation of, how do you mean that? What do you do? What is it that you can help us with? Because we're starting to use robots. And so leading with that kind of a headline and then bringing in the rest of the thought leadership behind it. Knowing your stuff and making it simple and easy to understand is really the heart of it there. Like, I don't know how else to describe it really.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like the customer, if they haven't experienced the pain, right, you have to make them aware of the pain.
But targeting the people that are actually experiencing some small part of that pain. So being able to target and doing the account-based marketing where you're researching the companies that are using robotics in some small to large way. And then, we have a whole matrix of, who are we talking to? Why are we talking to them? Why does it matter for them? What do we offer in terms of benefit? Not just here's our product features, but what's the benefit of using us? And you can have that all in place and be talking to the wrong people. So it's finding the right people to talk to that message resonates. So that top line of that matrix is, who are we talking to? That customer persona. Is it a head of operations? Is it a person that's working with the robot every single day? Is it somebody that's looking on the computer for their missions every day? And then what is it that they're experiencing as a headline for, God, this is frustrating. I can't get them all to work together, or I can't get reporting, or whatever the case may be. And then how are we helping them with that as a benefit? So just making it concise, clear. Here's our ICP, the one line of why they care about or why they should care about us, and then how we can benefit them, and trying to find those people and send out those messages in the way that they want it consumed. Yeah.
So I have another question, because obviously, right, like your marketing team, oftentimes marketing is perceived as, oh, they just do a lot of, cool stuff, create collaterals and whatever else, and not necessarily always giving us the credit for driving revenue or creating awareness about our brand, but they also expect us to make sure that we're contributing to the business growth, right? So if in the early days, a lot of that energy is spent on creating a ton of content, educating the market, making them aware of the pain, and very little of that is actually translated into new inquiries coming in and sales conversations, leadership is going to have some frustrations about that.
100%.
So how do you balance, right? Like you still need to be invested into the long-term strategy of building a strong brand, creating awareness. Meanwhile, you also need to do sales activation and lead gen for the short term. How do you balance that from both on the strategy as well as on just what type of things you would execute?
So it's funny, I just had this conversation yesterday and today, both. So yes, your ultimate goal is to get those hand raisers and the people that are filling out forms and coming into your site every day, and you have a crisis of opportunity where you have so many of those, you don't know what to do. You have to build up your sales team or something needs to be done. And in the meantime, again, while you're, yes, building up that brand recognition and building up the essentially top of the funnel pipeline, really, there's a small trickle of those leads coming in, but you still have activity and you still have places that you can go diving in to say, well, that person is interacting with us in some way. How can we bubble them up to a lead that we can follow up with? Do some combination of inbound and outbound. You have those outbound activities. You can do LinkedIn campaigns and see what gets generated from there. You can use Apollo and tools like that to do email campaigns and see who's interacting with you there, and make it so that it's not just, oh, they opened an email, especially lately that those blockers are in place, but not just that they opened an email. You can make it, they've interacted with us in a bunch of ways. They've clicked through a few emails. They've visited our website. That's somebody that's interacting with us. Let's have a sales follow-up and make it more, it's not cold, it's lukewarm, but it isn't a hand raiser. So in that time, you can still start that top of the funnel with slightly less warm leads, but have that combination of, we're building up the brand recognition. We just don't have the form fills coming in that we want, or the emails coming in, or the hand raisers that we want just yet. We need to go out and say, they're wiggling their hand a little bit. Let's raise that hand up with some more outreach and targeted sales conversations.
What are some of the channels that you prioritize, especially in the early days of marketing? Obviously, organic content creation and distribution is one, but are there specific channels where you've seen most traction in getting in front of your ideal customers?
I have typically a combination of LinkedIn, because you're able to go in and do based on a prospect's skill set. So that has been very important. Like if you have a skill set in robotics and you're working for these very specific types of companies, we want you to see our content. We want you to interact with us. So being able to really target people through there, but also, email campaigns. People don't think that it's sexy enough, but I have found a lot that getting through to people and getting into their inboxes and having very relevant and meaningful content starts to build that recognition, but also get the lead gen that you want, because our unsubscribe rates have always been very low, even as we expand our audiences. And that's been the case, thankfully, for me with my past lives as well. So that just speaks to quality content, and that can be in an email, anything from a video to a blog to, all sorts of forms, pointing to our social media content, all sorts of forms of content that are in there. And if they're not unsubscribing, then they're part of it. And we have a lot of interaction. And so we're waiting for those leads to come in from that as well. So having that campaign that's like that journey, that's a nurture of just we have a monthly newsletter, and we have like an occasional product updates and information, down to, well, you've interacted with us in these specific ways. Let's give you that specific content or type or product or whatever it is that you seem to show interest in, and do more targeted lead gen type campaigns with that. And that's been in the past a good combination for us. And then working with sales as well to get those follow-ups of, we've had this kind of interaction. Let's go out there, and this is the script that you would use because they behaved in these very specific ways. It shows that they are interested in this product or this service, or they have these buying intents, go have at and see what happens and see how that converts. And I've had it in the past where like in one particular email campaign out of 10,000 people, we had 50 people drill down to this one very specific link that they clicked and didn't convert to sales from the click. But when I provided that to a salesperson and said that here's what we have, here's what the situation is, it shows that they're interested in this product. They just didn't pull the trigger on buying it. She made the first 5 calls and made 4 sales because they just said, oh yeah, I clicked on that and I didn't have the time, or I had more questions, or whatever. Something happened, that time passed. And so it was like, okay, like, so that's been a good combination of lead gen and revenue for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we as marketers actually know how to make sense of the digital fingerprints that our prospects are leaving behind, right? Like they're on your website looking at a specific page, or they downloaded a specific resource, and actually taking that insight and turning it into a warm outreach to say, hey, I noticed that you showed some interest in the specific resource or content. I'm just curious what prompted you to want to research that. What's actually happening in your organization that prompted you to go looking for something like this, and how could I be of resource to you? How can I provide more insights around that topic? When you reach out with those sort of an approach, the prospect is like, oh yeah, we're actually talking about this. We're having this problem. I came across your research. I didn't even get a chance to read it, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, and then may open up an opportunity to connect. A lot of times, I think what happens is marketing drives a lot of campaigns. It could be webinar registrations, or it could be an ebook download, or any sort of a resource consumption. And then we pass these leads over to salespeople, and then they're like, "Oh, those people are not qualified. They don't know. They're not ready to buy."
Yes.
But you got to know where the customer is in that buying journey, like you talked about, right? Especially if in the early stage of us educating them about the problem that they're about to experience, they may not be even ready to talk about their pain. You need to be the one to educate them even more as a salesperson.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's an important aspect. So obviously I know revenue is what everybody cares about from a reporting standpoint, but in the early days, you have to look at other leading indicators that are showing sign of success. And you've mentioned one being subscriber, your subscription of your email list going up. What other key metrics do you look at to kind of give some confidence to the leadership that, hey, we're doing the right stuff. It's actually working toward the right outcome. Here's what I have to show you that is working.
So we look at engagement in the campaigns. Click-through rates are big, and also obviously lead forms, right? So we like to look at the top of the funnel down to revenue. Forms are the biggest thing, whether they're coming in organically or through campaigns, and they're hand raisers. And so those are the people that you want the most. And then from there, in currently our particular case, we're looking at first meetings. So if we have a first meeting with somebody, that's a really good indicator that they are actually interested, that they're willing to put in the time. And that has typically led to the further qualification and then a deal creation, et cetera. And so we're looking at first meetings as that next step from that top of the funnel to what's a major indicator for that lead going through and hopefully becoming a deal in revenue. Yeah, so that's what we have in that case. But like within any given campaign, it depends on the media. It depends on what we're looking at. LinkedIn, we'll look at click-through. We'll look at the forms that were filled out for lead gen. We'll look at impressions, sort of. I mean, that's not a huge indicator, but I'd rather the click-throughs than the impressions. So, and then, like we've said in email campaigns, we've had the click through and what they're clicking and very specific links and things like that. If we put out an alert that we had some product update and we get a lot of clicks on that one particular link, then we'd say, all right, well, that means that there's interest in that product. That's great, and even if it doesn't necessarily result in leads, let's say, people are interested. And then you start to dissect all right, why did people click and not actually follow through with anything, et cetera?
Yeah. And what about like you're creating content, you don't necessarily have a lot of traction in terms of visits. Are you tracking keyword position changes or even just the organic traffic growth from those specific content? And how much of that is actually?
That's not currently something we're doing. It is something that I'm building for 2025. I only just started with an orbit in August. So we had different priorities for my first part of my tenure here. But that's absolutely something we're looking at for 2025 is more of the organic and positioning and yes, SEO and ranking and everything like that. I'm beginning that framework right now. In past lives, it's absolutely been something that we worked on and created content toward and made sure that we were, and I intend to do again, make sure that we keep on top of what is that people are looking for and get ahead of that in terms of creating content and putting it on the page or putting it on the site that's relevant, whether it be a blog post or an evergreen page or a landing page somewhere.
Yeah, especially those leading indicators that shows the sign of success, right? Like those early sign of success that, hey, if I just do more of these things, that it should contribute to additional traffic that leads to conversion. Like you said, then track the whole thing all the way to meeting to opportunity creation, closed won. What tools are you using right now for your marketing efforts, and where are you measuring and tracking all these metrics?
So right now we're using HubSpot, and that's our CRM and marketing automation tool. I'm also using various connectors to HubSpot, but really we're measuring our metrics in there. So it is fairly robust for what we're looking for. The only thing that we would add, and I'm looking into, is something more on the AI side of creation. So that way we can utilize that a little bit more. Right now we're using, for some of the content creation, using things like Chat GPT, but other AI content creation as well, not for like blog posts or anything like that, but something to what's
speed up the process. Speed up the process. Get some
speed up the
creative
process,
ideas.
but just make it a little more elevated for what we have. But we're looking at automations and ways to interact with leads that are coming in that make it so that it's as automated as possible, but also as personalized as possible. So that way it can maybe keep on top of the leads better than a human can, and bring in somebody to convert and get that first meeting. So, in orbits that is a big one, but HubSpot is a big one that we're using for our marketing stack.
Yeah, HubSpot does have the content hub, which also has that content remix as a feature that allows you to do some AI-driven, AI-enabled content creation. But every one of them has its limitations in some sense, right? Because I think images and everything, even though the AI tools can create it, it's nowhere near the level of quality and aesthetics, right? In terms of matching your brand and all of those things. So you still need a little bit of human intervention, but I think it can help you coming up with content ideas, or even at least get the initial draft and then have possibly a subject matter expert refine or update or modify as needed.
Yes. Yeah. And then also with things like, we need to refresh our content on our website, and rather than pouring through and saying, all right, this is the rewrite that we need, and having individual people go through it and pour through it, then using an AI tool to say, all right, we need it enhanced with these keywords. We need this done, and then have the human interaction to go through it and say, okay, you've given us the head start. Now let's refine what we have here with our own eyes. So, and that's actually much like what we're doing with Orbit and robots, is that we don't expect to replace humans. We want everybody to work together nicely. So same with AI on the marketing side.
Yeah, most certainly an enabler, not completely a replacer.
Yes.
But obviously you're a small but mighty team of two. You're creating content, you're doing all this campaigns at HubSpot, monitoring all this performance, early days of doing pretty much everything in the marketing front. So how are you guys dividing and conquering and making sure that you're spending your energy on the right sort of tactics so that you're not just spread too thin, wasting time?
Yeah, so we have, being small but mighty, we try to have a line in the sand a little bit, but Jeff, who works with me, is on the content side mostly. So that's his biggest hat that he wears. And then I'm more on the strategy and targeting and messaging side from the copy point of view, more like. I guess we obviously wear each other's hats often and go through that. But I think that the biggest thing that keeps us in line is, we understand what it is that we have to accomplish. So it's setting that expectation, like, okay, we have either these events or this content that needs to get around these events that needs, if we have those as tent posts for our year, or we have these product announcements or launches that we're going to have, and we need content around that. Putting up those posts of what we need throughout the year, and then saying, okay, this is going to be your responsibility, this is going to be my responsibility, and having that roadmap for what we're going to accomplish. I'm on the strategy side, so I create those tent posts. I push that plan along. I create that plan, push that plan along. And so, from there, it's all right, the everyday stuff that gets thrown at you. Oh, by the way, this is happening, or can you enhance this in HubSpot? We don't like that this is happening, or can you create this automation because the other one is wrong. It's creating SQLs when it shouldn't, or something, and those kinds of things that, do you have time for it? Do I have time for it? Can you be on that meeting? Can I be on that meeting? And so that happens every day. But at the end of the day, I think we're pretty efficient in that overall, all right, here's what we have, here's where we're going, this is you, this is me, and we'll help each other accordingly and get outside help where we need it.
Yeah. Are you using something like OKRs, like objectives and key results, or anything like that to kind of orchestrate your execution?
So we are using, we have our own goals that we have, and but we aren't using those. We probably should. I have in past lives, and those have been great ways of getting things done. Yeah, we have our flywheel is set up a little differently, so on the biz side, but yeah.
Yeah, having some sort of a single goal, and then all kinds of activities that we're doing. How are we aiming toward that same outcome, right? Because I know just doing a lot of activity doesn't always equal to outcome, right? You can be busy with doing so many things. As marketers, especially when people throwing in, we have this webinar we would like to do. Okay, I thought we're just we're launching this, product announcement now, and then now you want to do this webinar, right? You get thrown all these things at you, but you got to have some way to kind of guide your decision-making process on what is priority.
For sure. We have our overall company goal. And so anything in the marketing world is relating to that. How are we going to back into that? So if we have our revenue goal, then how is marketing going to contribute to that? That is the marketing plan. We expect, X percent of our growth to be from net new deals, which means that we would need X, Y number of dollars in revenue from marketing, which means, and then back into, how many leads is that on the top of the funnel? How many first meetings is that? How many deals is that? And then that are related to marketing. And then, yes, what activities will lead us there? What we are lacking a little bit in data right now around what are the best channels for what revenue we've gotten. And so we're working on that, setting that level as well, where in HubSpot we have lead sources, and we're making sure that we're filling out lead sources, and so that we can track things to what are the best things that are creating revenue, what are the best activities that are creating revenue for us. So that way we're not just, as you said, saying, all right, well, now we have a product launch, now we have this, now we have that. It's all toward that goal, that ultimate goal of creating the revenue that we need from marketing. And ultimately my goal is, I want at least 90% of our revenue to be generated from net new marketing leads, or maybe not net new, marketing leads. So between a combination of net new and lead or current customers that came in from marketing originally. So that way marketing is that growth engine, that sales engine.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, right, the early days, sometimes you don't have enough data to make judgment calls on what's working. And attribution is always the biggest challenge most people have, because a lot of times with all this privacy consent and all of those things, a lot of those data is not even always available, right? Because if they didn't acknowledge your cookie consent, and you couldn't track in your HubSpot where they originally came from, and everything looks like it was direct traffic or organic, and you just start to kind of, give credit to certain channels that you think is primarily driving most of that sale. It's a challenge that most people have.
Which is okay by me, as long as we even if we understand, as you said earlier, the breadcrumbs, the breadcrumbs can lead us to, it's more than likely, it's correlation and not causation necessarily, but if we can correlate, that's okay. If it came from the website, that's already something. And now we know that it's a website lead. So from there, what are the channels that are getting us those website leads?
Yeah.
And finding those breadcrumbs.
Well, certainly. And obviously in the industry like this, where you're kind of a category creator, kind of in the forefront of the technology and innovation, there's probably not a lot of competitors that do what you do. So how do you look at that competitive landscape to see what you could do different? Or sometimes if you already have a leading competitor in the space, you can kind of emulate their success by kind of reverse engineering what they've done. But if you don't have that, it's a little bit difficult to do. How are you approaching that right now, as kind of building as the, almost like the analogy of like you're building the airplane as it's flying?
Yes, we are building the airplane as it's flying. That's 100% correct. But we are looking at our competitors. We look at the competitors in terms of, yes, keywords and where they're landing in and SEO. We're looking at competitors in look and feel and what their messages are versus what our messages are. And I always look at it from, okay, they're saying this and we're not. Is there a reason for that? Or can we say this? Or is that important to our customers even? Like, is that something that's resonating? So that competitive analysis, it ranges from, again, that brand and look and feel and the difficult things to enumerate to, yes, SEO and where they're landing and where we're seeing them. I mean, even in events, right? Like, okay, well, they've exhibited at this show. Should we consider exhibiting at that show? Is there a reason for that? Is that something we overlooked for some reason? And
yeah, it's always, is an important aspect of your marketing strategy to look at what the competitor is doing, but you don't always want to be copycats, right? Like just doing what the heck.
Yeah, we're certainly not wanting to be copycats, but if we're talking to people that are also talking to our competitors or have come over from our competitors and we get an understanding of, that's kind of it's what I would think of as almost a focus group, right? We're talking to people that have come in and they say, oh, I've looked at your competitor and they seem to have this. Well, we'd better have an answer for that. If they seem to have something that we don't seem to have, do we have it?
Yeah.
Why don't we show it? Why aren't we displaying it? Why aren't we talking about it more? If that's something that is enough people are talking about that when they're coming to us, then that's something we need to consider either creating content for or whatever the case is. And so, yeah, it's interesting to not have very many competitors, and we're in a time where more competitors creep up or perceived competitors creep up that, you learn about new ones kind of a lot. Pretty often, which kind of muddies the water out there a little bit in the industry. And so you need to really make your differentiation clear and make yourself the leader in the space and clear up the actual competitors versus perceived competitors, and have that talk track and understanding ready so that when you're speaking to customers or prospects, you're able to say, yes, I know that they have, or they tell you that they have X and Y, and the reality of it is that they do. However, we have this and it's better because, et cetera. Or, that the Miracle on 34th Street approach where we don't have that and we won't, but we have these other things and this is why we're great. Yeah. So, how important is that X to you? So yeah, using competitors as a way of, even if when there are a few of them, it's definitely a benchmark that we look at.
Most certainly. Obviously, marketing is an industry that's rapidly changing. There's a lot of innovation happening. Like you said, there's AI that's drastically changing the way we do things, and technology. There's just, if you look at the MarTech landscape, I think they started with a couple of hundred SaaS products in the marketing space. Now there's like 5,000 or something. It's just outrageous amount of tools. And then also just the way that we market, right? Because the type of content we used to create mostly was all written, and we moved into more images, and now we're all video and more interactive. So it's just a lot of changes happening. So how are you staying top of mind? How are you staying in the forefront of learning what's happening so that you can adapt some of those things into your approach in marketing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have Flipboard, and I have marketing as one of my topics. And so I get a lot of information from that, my LinkedIn groups, and I keep on top of what's going on in things there and different marketing societies and things like that. And just observing what's happening. What are the people that are the companies that are known as being at the forefront of things? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And so just keeping on top of that stuff and learning the different tools that are out there. I mean, as you said, there's more than 5,000 tools. I'm surprised it's even that little out there for marketers these days. It's the cup runneth over with what you want to do, and if you think it, you can search for it and find it and see if it'll work and help you. So I also utilize that. I mean, I utilize Google and DuckDuckGo for my searches to say, you know what, it would be great if I could find a tool that could do blah, and then find it and see if I can use it, and off I go. So yeah, using your peers in the industry and hearing about that through LinkedIn and people that I've kept in touch with. And then again, that industry news via various media and things like that. I mean, at the heart of it, it's interesting because while things do change in terms of overall what people respond to, there are certain audiences that I think still respond to different things. Like an engineer will always love a very lengthy, dense paper of some kind, be it a blog post or a white paper or something else. End user audiences that I'm talking to now in innovation and robotics and operations, they are not that content dense. They want the shorter, snappier content, be it in a video or some sort of highlight and bullet points or something like that. So, and then have that conversation and be able to fill in the blanks and add more meat to it. So I think that still with all the different type of media and all the different types of tools and everything that's available, sometimes like the old fashioned stuff just works really, really well, because again, people are people. And so the new stuff, some of the new ways of doing things are fantastic, but they might not resonate with the audience you're talking to. So you just need to know that.
Yeah, most certainly. And I mean, like you said, even if it's like a technical book or something, like an ebook or something that I download, I'm still using like ChatGPT to just summarize it for me and tell me the key points. Because I don't have 20, 30 minutes to just read a 15 page or 30 page, very in-depth documentation or something around a specific topic. And then same thing, I never thought I would see the day to say this, but I actually use Bing Copilot. I also found that to be pretty useful in terms of like coming up with summaries and things of that nature. Like I recently had an experience where I had this patch of backyard lawn that was brown. I took a bunch of pictures of my backyard and I sent it to Bing Copilot and I asked like, hey, I have this backyard. I'm in the Midwest. What could be the root cause of it? What are the solutions to fix it? And it gave me a really nice, well-written possible causes of the reason why I have brown patches on my lawn, possible lawn replacement, things I can do, the fertilizers, and even lawn care service providers in my area that I can contact. I was just blown away.
That's amazing.
What I'm saying is like, I've never thought I will ever use Bing, and I'm actually finding some of these features of the Copilot to be extremely useful. So yeah, I mean, I think, people are using so many things. Like you as the marketer has to be providing content in so many different formats because people just
you can't meet them where they are and meet them where they potentially want to be. You have to be at the forefront as well. And especially with promoting products that are at the forefront of technology and are cutting edge, you can't just market in only the old fashioned ways. You have to do the content that is in all that format and all those ways that would make it so that it's like, okay, I may never use it, but it's there. We have it available to you. We used ChatGPT to summarize this for you, or here's a tool to be able to use what you need to get the most out of this content that we created, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely need for long form content, but a lot of times people are so strapped for time that they just want a quick summary of what are the key takeaway that I can easily make a decision on what I need to do about whatever that problem or thing that they're trying to solve.
Yeah. So, and I remember the days when a 3-minute video was great, and now it's like, okay, 30 seconds to a minute, I understand it. People want to consume things quickly and get the highlights. So
attention span, it's definitely declining. We all got attention of whatever they say, right? Yeah, certainly. We can certainly talk about a lot of things in marketing, but I have kind of a closing question for you. Obviously, you've been in the space, you've saw your career grow and improve. And of all the things you've experienced and learned in your life, what's one advice would you give younger Rosina, in terms of what advice would you give?
I would probably tell myself to embrace the potential instability of life earlier. I find it really exciting to join teams that are doing new and exciting things, even in what might be considered old stage companies that have been around for, 80 years or whatever, but working in them and doing new and exciting things instead of that steady, I'm the SEO person, I'm the whatever, and embrace earlier and start this particular journey earlier in my career of doing the new and exciting things and getting that new and exciting cutting edge stuff a little earlier. And just saying, trust the process, trust that you'll learn more sooner and can use that further in your career as well.
Awesome. That's a great advice for others too, to embrace those sort of life changes and not be scared of it.
Yeah,
great wisdom to kind of end our conversation. I certainly enjoyed this talk, and thank you so much for joining and sharing some of your life lesson and wisdom with my audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.